We're up to episode 80 of In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro, and we sit down today with the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, who shares his journey with us from Enugu, Nigeria to the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. Grew up in Nigeria playing soccer, running track, and came to football back in his early 20s, but had a great career and one of the best careers for the Kansas City Chiefs as a big running back. He shares his journey with us and also shares his top 5 big running backs as well, and talks about his new book coming out in November. It is episode 80 In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro, featuring the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye. Well, thanks for spending a little time with us and sharing your story. And I know you've got a new book coming out November 7th. Some of what we're going to talk about, I'm sure, is in that book. But we like to begin at the very beginning. And for you, it starts in Enugu, Nigeria, right? And growing up there, it wasn't football that we're used to. It's another football, soccer, and also track and field. Take us through the early days for you in Nigeria and where sports were in your upbringing.
Well, as I was growing up, I was so much in love with soccer. I played soccer all the time. And of course, my dad weren't too happy that I was so in love with soccer. So I got in trouble with him all the time. You know, I normally received severe punishment every single day. You know, just imagine. I mess up today, he will punish me, and the following day I'll do the same thing. I get another punishment. You know, this went on and on and on and on until one of our neighbors told him, you know, you better leave this kid alone, you know, because it might be one of those things that he will end up doing in life. And what kind of changed everything also was my very first coach from in Nigeria, with a track coach, Patrick Anokwa, came to my dad and told him, you know, I will pick up your son and we'll go to practice after school, and after practice, I'll bring him back to make sure he's home. You know, so my dad agreed with that. So that's the only reason why I actually stayed with sports, and eventually changed into track and field, and the rest was history, coming to America on track scholarship.
Yeah, he was stressing academics, right? He didn't see the value of athletics with academics. Is that what it was?
Yes, most Nigerian parents are the same way.
Well, again, you excelled. And what brought you to the U.S.? You came to the United States at 21.
Well, yeah. Actually, I came at 19, and I just turned 20 here. But I had started track and field, throwing the discus. I first started with running the hurdles, but I was getting bigger and bigger, so I switched to field events. And Patrick Anokwa was the field event coach at the time, so he took me under his wing and was training me. And of course, in 1981, one of my friends on the same team, Innocent Ebunike, came to America to go to school. He had been in 80 Olympics in Moscow. And so he came to Azusa Pacific, and I told him I would like to come because Olympic was going to be held in Los Angeles in 84. Was it? Yeah, in 84. Mm-hmm. And so he worked it out for me to come. And I came in 82. I had 2 years to train before the Olympics. So after that, those 2 years, I had made tremendous improvements throwing the discus. So, but when Olympics came around, Nigeria left me out. And when they left me out, it was a huge disappointment. But all along, within those 2 years, my friends had been talking to me about trying to convince me to play football, American football. But not knowing anything about the game, I told them no. As a matter of fact, the first time Innocent took me to a football game, the school football game, we got there and I saw, players come out to warm up. And I asked him, I said, what is this? He says, it's football. I said, what kind of football is this? This is American football. Just watch. And I said, okay. And I sat there. When the game started, players would get in the huddle. They circle around, and it seemed like they were whispering something to them, to each other. And the other side was doing the same thing. And then they will come together, and the whistle blows, and they hit each other, and the whistle blows again, and they stop. I told him, I said, no, let's get out of here. This is boring. Because I'm used to soccer, when the ball is kicked, everybody, you just play on, right?
Yeah.
So we left, and I never watched a full football game until I decided to play after Nigeria didn't take me to the Olympics. So when I started, it was like, it was crazy.
Yeah, so the disappointment of 1984 not making that team, not going to the Olympics, but at Azusa Pacific, as you said, learn about football. What was it like the first time you put the pads on, put the helmet on, and you either took a hit or you gave a hit for the first time?
It was very strange, As a matter of fact, after the first practice, I went back to my track coach, Terry Franson. I told him, I said, Coach, this is very hard. I can't do it because I had headaches. I had bruises around me, and he says, Christian, that's what football is. You're going to feel those things, but you have to overcome it if you want to play football. If you don't want to play, then I'll support you to just quit, but you don't want to be a quitter, So he just kind of gave me that talk, and I went back and I stuck it out. And but I made several decisions to quit along the line. But every time I come to him to tell him about my decision, he says, Christian, they tell me you're doing so well. You're improving every single day, so you don't want to quit. You want to just stick it out for this year. So his encouragement and my teammates' encouragement, and of course, teaching me some of the things that I needed to know about the game helped me stay on for that first year. And of course, second year came around, the same thing over again. His second year was my senior year. And I had grown tired of the game because I didn't see it, going beyond college. So there was no need for me to continue playing. I wanted to go back to track and field. But the same people convinced me to stay on. So I finished my second year. I said, okay, that's it, And I think it was a writer from LA Times that came one time, or maybe a scout, I can't remember, told me, says, Christian, you made a lot of improvements from your first year to the second year. If you want, you can go back and play one more year because you're still eligible to play. And after that third year, if you improve enough, you might get a chance to be invited to one of the NFL camps, And doing that, you have a chance to earn a living. And I thought about it. I said, okay, I'll go back. And I played my third year. And I tell you, that third year made a huge difference because I improved a lot, And I had to put a lot of, thought into it. And after that third year, I was invited to a Senior Bowl in Alabama. And of course, I didn't anticipate that happening. But when they called, I had to go. I really didn't want to go because I had decided within me that football is not for me anymore. But I went to a small school, Azusa Pacific, and all these people were like, wow, this is big. Nobody from the school has ever been invited to this bowl game. So you have to go, And I went, and I had to jump over a lot of obstacles. I sprained my right ankle the first practice over there. And I was looking for them to send me home, but they did not send me home. It was kind of weird. I asked the trainer at the time, Don Shula was the coach and his staff, of course, and I asked the trainer, I said, I'm injured. Are they going to send me home? He says, no, Christian, before you got here, they put out a huge article in the newspaper here, a whole page about you, how strong you were, how fast you run, and where you came from, and so on and so forth. So they really want you to play, so people can see you. They really want you to play. So we're going to do our best to get you ready to play. I said, oh gosh. So, it's a big, bullseye on my back. I had to work extremely hard in there. Thank God I stayed because I scored 4 touchdowns in the Senior Bowl and was the offensive player of the game. And also the record, I believe, still stands there. And, that's where the Chiefs saw me and drafted me.
Yeah, in 1987 NFL draft, second round, 35th overall to Kansas City. So you start with not knowing what football is, American football, and then get drafted after just 3 years. What's going through your mind at that point?
It was still, everything was like moving fast, and so I was just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. I didn't want to kind of like look forward to like 10 years or whatever, because I didn't know what was happening. I've never been in that position before. And all I can do is just take it a day at a time. After I was drafted, I got to Kansas City and I didn't know anything. The school I went to, we didn't have any playbooks. I never saw a playbook. The plays that we had, I think we had like 4 or 6 different, running plays. It took me a while, but I decided within myself that I'm gonna study the plays, know exactly what I'm doing, when my number is called. And that's exactly what I did, and that's what helped me out a whole lot. The offensive system that was installed, that was the first year they installed it. So I was in the same boat with all the other players in the Chiefs. So I had to know exactly what I'm doing when we practice.
So what was that transition like? Because it seemed like maybe it took you a couple of years, but obviously 1989 was a great year for you. Did you feel like in a couple of years you finally hit your stride in the NFL and with the Chiefs in 1989?
Well, you see, what happened is that I had Frank Gans as the head coach who drafted me. That was his first year being the head coach in Kansas City in 1987. And then we had a horrible year. And then his second year in 88, we had the same number of games that we won. Then he got fired after the season. And Carl Peterson and Marty Schottenheimer was hired in 89. So when they came, Marty called me and he says, Christian, do you mind coming in town for a little chat? I'm like, oh, yeah, I never met him before. I flew to Kansas City and came to his office direct. And I sat down and he says, I just wanted to look at you and let you know that we're going to run the ball and run it a lot. Are you ready? I said, I am, coach. I told him, I said, that's the only thing I know how to do because I'm still new in this game. He said, okay, good. Go get yourself ready because when you come back, we're going to start work. I said, sure. The meeting lasted only 3 minutes. I flew all the way from California to see Marty. Our meeting was only 3 minutes. And then he took me to introduce me to the rest of the staff, and that was it.
Yeah, 370 attempts that year, almost 1,500 rushing yards. You led the NFL. And I saw a little smile came on your face when you talk about Marty Schottenheimer. I know you look at him certainly as a mentor and somebody who is obviously very influential in your career. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the case. If Marty didn't come to Kansas City, I would have quit football after 3 years. That was my decision. I said, I'm going to play 3 years and I will get out. But when he came after my second year and told me what he told me and promised me, I said, I'm going to stay. And I'm glad he came. And, Marty was a straight shooter to me. To me, when he talked to me, I learned a lot from him. He said the same words, to the players, the same words that my dad used to say to me and my siblings. Take things one step at a time. one play at a time, one day at a time. You can't rush through life at all, So, and of course, those are the things that I needed to hear. Being a new player, so I had to learn, and I can't just look ahead and see what I could be. You see, so him being there helped my career a whole bunch.
At 6'1" and 260, I'm sure that helped your career as well. How did you use that size to your advantage? How many yards do you think you got after contact in your career?
I think most of the years I had, the size helped a whole bunch, and I tried to use my athletic ability, my track and field skills. Even though I was a thrower, I started out as a sprinter. And when I was at Azusa, I used to challenge my sprinter friends to races, and of course, short races, not 100 yards or 100 meters, knowing that my size and all that. When I started playing football, I have to tell you, when I started playing football, I weighed 282 pounds.
Wow.
As a running back. So I gradually came down to 260, 256, but so I had to throw my weight around when I was playing for the Chiefs, and it worked out.
So again, you're relatively new to the game at this point. Were you emulating anybody? Were you watching any other games kind of to learn about the sport while you're playing the sport?
Yes, I did. I watched a lot of films. I collected films of Jim Brown, Jim Taylor, if you remember him, that played for Green Bay. I watched Walter Payton a lot, even though he was smaller in size. I had to watch him because of his demeanor, the way he played. He played big. You see, Earl Campbell, I watched him. And my friend Eric Dickerson, because I loved his running style, the way he flowed around the field. Even though I couldn't flow that way, I was a big guy. I couldn't flow that way, but I loved watching him play. And all collectively, when I watch these guys, I try to learn, try to think and emulate what they're thinking, their demeanor on the field. Because being new in the game, I have to start somewhere. I've never been involved with anything where you have to continuously run into people and then get up and line up again and run into people. So watching these guys helped me a whole bunch.
You said 1989, your high water mark, 91, you make an All-Pro and a Pro Bowl as well. And then injuries starting to come into play. What was that like, dealing with injuries and maybe not being as healthy as you wanted to be during those days?
Well, when injuries came, I was playing with them as long as I can run. I play with injuries. I remember in Seattle when we were playing over there, I tripped on a fold of turf, old turf, and I was catching myself. A linebacker hit me and my shoulder came out. They popped it back in. I went back and finished the game. But the rest of the season, every time I hit somebody, it would pop out, and I learned to put it back in. Those are one of the things that I went through. And of course, many concussions. One in particular in Chicago when Richard Dent and I ran into each other, and we both knocked each other out. I kind of staggered to the huddle, and he followed me. One of my offensive linemen told him, "Hey, Richard, your huddle is over there." They were telling me this later on because I didn't even hear. My ears were ringing and stuff. Yeah. But all those things, I had to learn how to do that back then. It doesn't happen anymore in today's game, but back then, guys have to learn to play with their ears ringing, seeing stars, and so on. But those are the things that I had to learn from my teammates because I wasn't born that way at all.
Yeah, certainly a different era that you played in than now. Maybe more knowledge about things, especially concussions. CTE obviously is a lot of the discussion. Do you have any effects now from those concussions you had back in the 80s and 90s, early 90s?
Well, people around me can probably tell you, but the only thing I can feel myself, is headaches that I get. I do get a lot of headaches, which is kind of like become, part of me. Yeah, I listen to a lot of players talking about, forgetfulness. They forget things a lot, and that is starting to creep into me. But I'm just hoping that it's slow and not quick. I want to be able to recognize my grandkids when they're here. So.
Yeah, you're in your early 60s, so you look great for all the contact that you took. So again, the injuries creep in. 93, you officially retired. But before that, your last carry was a touchdown in 92, an 8-yard touchdown. Do you remember looking back thinking that this could be the last time you touch a football and run the football?
No, I don't even remember. This is the first time I've heard it, but no, I don't remember at all. I remember coming back in camp, and it was too much, and I told Marty, I said, Coach, I think I'm done. He says, oh, you're only 31 years old. You can't quit now. I said, Coach, I'm just, I wasn't supposed to play this long anyway, so thank you.
Well, you finished as the Chiefs' all-time leading rusher, almost 5,000 yards, and in 2000, you were inducted into their Hall of Fame. What does that tell you about what you were able to accomplish in such a short amount of time, not just with the Chiefs, but in the game itself? Because, again, you didn't come to it until you were in your early 20s.
Well, I just thank God for all the opportunities. Every time I talk to kids today, I tell them to make sure they seize all the opportunities that come to them, because those are the things that can lead them through life. And my story is an example. I didn't know I was going to play football, and football was a strange sport to me. I didn't know how to play. I didn't know what it was about, but I have people around me that help me out, So I preach that people should help each other out. And every time I go and speak to a group, I tell them that we're obligated to help others as we are helped by somebody.
And again, we began, your dad didn't want you to play sports at all. Was he around as you played your NFL career? What was his thoughts, as your career went on?
He was around. Actually, he visited after my rookie year when I received all the awards in Kansas City. So he was there and saw it, and he was a proud man back then. But in the beginning, he didn't want me to play at all. He said he read about the American football. It's very dangerous. I don't want you to partake in it. And but I went ahead and played anyway, and I'm glad that he came around to support me. But one thing that I left out is before I decided to play at Azusa, when I walked into the football coach's office, I asked him, I said, Coach, I'd like to play football. And he said, okay, what position would you like to play? And I didn't know any position in football back then, of course. But I told him, I said, I was watching the news one time, and I saw a guy that played for the Raiders, and he ran, he reversed the field, and he ran a long ways and scored a touchdown. And they said, oh, yeah, that was Marcus Allen. He was the MVP. I said, okay, what position was he? He says, running back. I said, that's what I want to play. And that's how I became a running back.
And that was in the Super Bowl, wasn't it? Is that what it was in the Super Bowl with the Raiders?
Yes, because they played in the Super Bowl earlier that year.
There you go. So the Super Bowl worldwide, obviously. Well, what was life like after your playing career? I know you've done several different things. What was on the table right after your playing career ended?
Well, when my career ended, I didn't do anything for a couple of years. And then, because I had a daughter that was quite young, and then I bought a small company that made protein powder. I ran it for 14 years and then sold it. I have a foundation for children, which I started while I was still playing in 1990. And then in 2006, after I was inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, I came back to California and found out that California didn't have a Sports Hall of Fame. So I started one, and it's still ongoing.
Yeah, I find that amazing that California doesn't have a sports hall of fame. You started in 2006, right? So is it a yearly induction into that hall of fame?
Yes, every summer at the last weekend of June, every summer. Yes.
So it took a Nigerian to start the California Sports Hall of Fame. That's a little crazy to me. But tell us about your book and what led to that. The Nigerian Nightmare, My Journey Out of Africa to the Kansas City Chiefs and Beyond.
Well, people have been telling me that I need to write a book, and it's I keep avoiding it because I don't like a lot of attention, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do it 6 years ago, and I had something finished, but I wasn't quite happy with it, so I connected with a different guy, Greg Hanlon from New York, and he did a great job, writing it. So he and I kind of collaborated and wrote it, and I'm very happy with it.
Did it give you a chance to reminisce a little bit and talk about some things that maybe you hadn't thought about or talked about in quite some time?
Oh, definitely, definitely. We talked about my family, my Azusa growing up, my friends in Azusa, my teammates in Kansas City, and of course, and some of the people that I ran into, that I met, and my current friends, everybody that's around me, that been a big part of my life, of course.
Bruce Arians wrote the foreword. People know him probably from Tampa Bay, other head coaching jobs in the NFL. What's the connection to you and Bruce Arians?
Bruce Arians, he came from Temple University. His first NFL coaching job was with Kansas City Chiefs, and he was my running back coach when he came. So he and I became friends way back then in 1989. So Marty hired him out of Temple to coach in Kansas City, and so he and I became friends since then. He's a good man, good man.
Got to ask you, I know you get teased a little bit, but the hit from Steve Atwater, he's a Hall of Famer. He was for the Broncos. You're a big back. He was a defensive back. Take us through that hit and what you remember, and do you still hear about that from people?
Of course, I still hear about that from people, but people think he's a defensive back and I'm a running back, and people think I can easily run him over. Steve is a big guy. If you meet him, he's a big guy. He's not a little guy.
Yeah,
he's a good player too. And every time people talk about the hit, they think, that hit made him. No. He's been a great player all along. So that one hit is just something that happened. And if you carry the ball a lot, somebody's going to catch you at some point. You see, and it's happened to the best of us. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things. But
do you guys ever see each other anymore?
What's that?
Do you ever see Steve Atwater at all at any functions or anything?
I haven't seen him lately. I remember the last time he went back working with the Broncos. I think he still works for them. Yeah.
Well, as you said, he's a big defensive back. You're a big running back. We have a new segment, our top five. I want to know your top five. And you mentioned maybe some of those guys, but your top five big running backs in your mind. And it's okay if you include yourself in the top five.
Top five. Gosh, big running backs. Shall I start with number one?
Let's go 5-1.
5-1. Gosh, I'm going to put myself the last, I'll be last. And then, of course, I have to count in Derrick Henry. You have to count Eddie George. Number one will have to be El Campbell.
Okay.
And then number two, gosh, Jerome Bettis.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about Jim Brown. So no Jim Brown in your top five big running backs? You don't think he's as big as some of those other guys?
Well, yeah, Jim Brown, didn't I count him?
No, not in your top five, but you talked about him earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm number five. Jim Brown will have to, let me change it. El Campbell will have to be number one. I look up to him. Jim Brown will have to be number two, and I will say I would say Derrick Henry, Eddie George, and myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I took out Jerome Bettis, but if I have to replace somebody, it will be Eddie George that I will replace for Jerome Bettis.
Well, for you, we'll say top six. We'll throw the bus back in there. So that's a pretty good six right there, yourself included. As you said, Eddie George, we've had him previously as a guest as well. So that's some pretty good guys. And as you said, some of them you learn the sport from it as well. Yeah. So I like that list. And again, it shows kind of different eras. Do you think you can play in today's NFL?
Of course. They don't tackle. They don't know how to tackle anymore. Are you kidding me? And there are so many rules that, people think about when they're playing football. They don't practice tackling. So, of course, I can play in it. Just don't throw it to me. Hand it off.
Well, can you be tackled, though? How do you tackle, in your days, how were you tackled the best by a defender?
Well, they gang tackle you. That's what happens. When you run the ball a lot, they know how to defend you. And if you go and ask some of our division teams, Denver, Raiders, Seattle back then, that's what they did, but we were still successful against them.
Again, your book comes out November 7th from our friends Triumph Books, who put it out. Again, the Nigerian Nightmare, My Journey Out of Africa to the Kansas City Chiefs and Beyond. And Chris, we wish you nothing but the best in the sales and with that book, and hope it goes well. It's a great story. It's certainly an inspirational story and an incredible one. Again, the career that you had is such a short amount of time playing this sport. It just says a lot about you and the person that you are, and certainly wish you nothing but the best.
Well, thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
Another great story. Christian Okoye sharing that with us here today. We appreciate his time. Appreciate his top 5/6 big running backs. A great list that certainly he is on as well. Be sure to look for his book coming out November 7th from our friends from Triumph Books. And as always, we invite you to like, to share, and to subscribe to our channels and our show as we continue to bring you some great guests and great stories as well. For JR Equipment, our creator, producer, and director, I'm Mike Vaccaro. We'll see you next time for another edition of In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.